Okay, welcome to a special episode of the CXM Experience. And as always, I am your host, Grad Khan, CXO, Chief Experience Officer at Sprinklr. And today I am joined by Paul Herman, Vice President of Product Marketing at Sprinklr. And Paul is a longtime colleague and peer of mine. Paul and I were both early customers of Sprinklr. Fondly recall days of jumping on the train and going down to Portland and seeing what they were doing at Nike. So I quote Paul all the time. And Paul is one of my favorite people. So I'm really excited. Paul's one of my first internal Sprinklr guests. So really glad to have him on. And Paul, you're the third show of 2021, the year that everyone was looking forward to and everyone's already regretting. It must be hard to be 2021. You know, expectations were so high. They were so high, probably unrealistically high. But how are you doing? And how was your break?
Break was lovely. Thank you so much for having me on the program. It's exciting to be here and to talk about this topic. The break was good. You know, I kind of went down to the Oregon coast to experience some horizontal rain.
Nice.
And so that was a fun time. But yeah, so 2021 started off much like 2020 ended, but a lot of hopes for what's going on and what's going to happen in the future.
Well, there's always 2022, right? I mean, at some point. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about something that comes up all the time. In fact, I was just on a call this morning with one of our customers, a very, very large global packaged goods company, who's, I think I must use every single one of their products, but not some of the products I've used, but I'm not in the use zone on them right now, but certainly been an amazing experience with them. And they're right in the midst of digital transformation. It was a really interesting conversation. I actually was quoting you liberally and crediting you, by the way, Paul. So just so you know, I was quoting and crediting you. But they're at a stage where I feel like maybe you and I were a couple of years ago, or maybe even 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was maybe easier for the tech firms and Nike. I know Nike's an apparel company, but also feels like a tech company in some ways. And I'll let you talk about that. But a lot of the companies are really just starting to get on board with digital transformation. And I think DT is for me a really fascinating topic because I remember about 2010 when I was at Microsoft, what digital transformation meant was really switching from analog to digital. And this almost seems ridiculous now in retrospect, but like the big thing in 2010 at Microsoft is that we weren't going to use paper anymore. They took away the copiers. Steve Ballmer sort of famously went to OneNote on everything, and we were now digital. It was really just paper in digital form, but it took a long time to really get to true digital, but that was sort of a necessary first step, but a lot of companies aren't there yet. Then there's this sort of second wave of disruption, which is how do you start thinking about things in real time and how do you look at things on a going basis? And that's very different from the motions that have been set up in most companies, which are kind of quarterly motions. And I think the third wave that's coming along now is that when you can look at things in real time, you can also talk to your customers in real time. And you can look at what your customers are doing in real time. And that's a whole other sort of mindset shift around customer first transformation. And so I want to just jam on this sort of topic with you a bit. You're out there a lot. You see a lot of this going on. I'd love to kind of get what your impressions are from different groups and different companies. And then underpinning all of this and underpinning what I think is making DT realistic now is that AI is getting sophisticated enough that the machines are able to actually get in there and do the work that required human intervention before. So that's kind of our topic for today. We'll kind of do this for 10 minutes or so, just kind of go back and forth. Love to hear your thoughts and let me know where you want to start on this one.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating to see. I would say you're right on. I think the last 3 to 5 years has seen a tremendous amount of acceleration, especially 2020. It was the classic proverbial iceberg in the water situation where many companies realized and were exposed in their need for digital technologies as much of the analog and live world sort of stopped. And so, I've seen it as well, going back to the Nike story, that started out around the same time frame, 2010, 2012, where the CMO of Nike at the time famously stood up and put one slide up and said, "Digital is oxygen."
Oh, right? I remember that.
And for a company that's based on performance and motivation to get people to move, oxygen had it wasn't just that word was chosen very carefully. Right. Oxygen for an athlete is not just getting me to breathe and getting me to move. Oxygen is the thing that you measure. Your VO2 max is the thing you measure for performance. Right. So in essence, he was not just saying digital is life, but he was saying digital is performance, right? And people grok that. They're like, okay, well, yeah, that's interesting. The other thing that was a big shift that I'm seeing, and a lot of people are now doing, and companies coming around, is this shift to personal, premium, seamless service, right? Not necessarily marketing first. Yes, marketing is a big part of that, but marketing out of the position of service. That has absolutely been amplified recently. A lot of companies are realizing we have to be personal, right? And personalization, to your point around AI, personalization requires us as brands to become more contextual. I tell a lot of companies, hey, content is king, but the context is queen, and the queen always rules, right? And this new world of digital data has provided an unprecedented amount of context. And brands that are contextually dumb are the brands that are losing. And so brands are looking to AI to help sort out this massive amount of information into actionable insights. The kind of like a different way of using the word AI in my mind would be, instead of saying artificial intelligence, it's more these actionable insights are super important, right? And that allows you to become more personal, right?
Yeah, then very interesting.
Becoming sort of premium is then, okay, I've got to break through the clutter. There are way more people online than ever before. I think I read the stat the other day. There's about 5 billion smartphones in 2021, right? So you got to break through that clutter, right? So that's the premium piece. I'm competing with Jerry of the day, or some skier wiping it out, or my best friend's cat, right? So I've got to break through there. So I've got to become relevant and premium. That's where AI can also help, right? AI is going to help me then to sort of understand, maybe it's AI in that instance is asset identification, like what assets are working and when are they working, right? So that's interesting. Then we go to this concept of seamless. Oh my, how many times have you and I heard the word customer 360, right? Treat me the same on any channel that I'm engaging with you, or more importantly, treat me on the channels that I want to engage with you on, right? So that becomes really interesting. And there in the world of AI, I would say, you kind of have, that specific area is more like, how do I do the AI? There would be maybe like an automated, inference. How do I infer what the customer and what the consumer wants to talk to me about? How am I able to sort of assist the interchange of information? And then finally, service, right? Service is an interesting word for a marketing person. But if you really are in the motion of learn to serve to know to grow, having a service mentality allows you to really think around a value exchange, right? Like the consumers are after authentic value, and service is a wonderful starting point to think, okay, how can my marketing serve you so that you give me information back and we grow together? That's a whole new interesting world that we started to see. So a long answer, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. And if I sort of summarize the Nike journey from 2012 to where we are today.
That's very cool. Well, this context and content pairing that you've done, the first time you sort of landed that on me a few months ago, I loved it, because I think it's like everyone says content, but content without context is not helpful. And I've got a quick example of something that's just happened to me in the last 24 to 48 hours that I thought was interesting. And it just points out how far we still have to go. So I went to go see a knee doctor. I've had some problems with my left knee, and I did an MRI on Tuesday. And the MRI result came back, and my doctor called me immediately, and she said, "You need to get you on Zoom like right this second." And I'm like, "That's always a good sign, right?"
A knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, a knee-jerk reaction. That's awesome. Anyway, so I will say, a wonderful thing about the digitization of healthcare is that the old days it'd be like you get a call, come on to the office, sit down. I mean, the results came in. They went into my portal. I'm a New York Presbyterian customer, so they went into the Epic My Portal. I was able to connect with my physician literally within. I was walking the dog, right? So I said, "Let me get back in the apartment." And 10 minutes later, I'm on a Zoom call with her, and she's showing me the MRI.
Wow,
it's pretty amazing. Anyway, so I have a very large medial tear in my left interior meniscus, and with a flap that's digging the crap out of my cartilage and pressing my MCL out. And she's like, "You have to get this fixed right away." Like when I first saw her, she's like, "You're such a crybaby, and just do some PT, you'll be fine." And then she's like, "Oh my God, this is like a terrible injury, and you need to get this repaired immediately." Wow. And I don't understand how you're like even walking right now. And so it was great, right? So anyway, I'm like, so I took the diagnosis, and I just did a quick copy, and then I pasted it into my Safari browser and did a search on, and then just some results came back. And one of the results is from the Hospital for Special Surgery, very, very famous orthopedic hospital here in New York City. So that was kind of cool because it localized my results to hospitals near me, which was neat. And it also presented one of the world's top orthopedic surgeon hospitals like right at the beginning of my results. And I kind of hit their page, and it was kind of complicated, and I sort of moved on. Next thing you know what I'm about to say, right? I log into Facebook, and there's an ad for, guess what?
Yeah.
Hospital for Special Surgery. And the good news about the ad, what I thought was kind of cool, is that it actually was an ad for the joint practice at HSS.
So super refined. Yeah.
Pretty refined. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is the whole issue. And this is what I'm going to want to talk about in digital transformation, changing expectations, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. It's like, click on it. And I just land on their webpage again.
Oh no.
And it's like find a doctor, and they've got a lot of doctors, and not millions, but there's like a lot of doctors, and basically you've got to like review each doctor's profile or something, and so I'm kind of reading them, and I found one who specializes in meniscus repair, so I have an appointment with her, so I'm kind of moving down the road on that and all that kind of stuff. But I was thinking to myself, God, this could be such a better experience. Imagine if I do that search, and I remember the search term was the actual injury I have, right? Wouldn't it be cool if it was like this person does like 10 of these repairs a day at HSS, and she could see you next Wednesday at 9:00 if you want to have an appointment? Like, why can't they get to that stage yet? And I think that right now, and I thought to myself, in a way, I felt like a little bit guilty because healthcare is so ridiculous. Like, and I'll give you another story in a second. And it's amazing that they're doing this at all. And the irony is, I've made this appointment, and what I have to do is I have to fax the MRI results.
What's a fax?
Before my appointment. So it's almost like I'm somehow going back in time as I proceed more deeply into the process. Okay, so I have to fax my MRI results. But what I realize is that my expectations have been formed not by the standard in healthcare. But I'm thinking, as I'm doing this, and as I'm thinking, oh, Dan, this isn't really what I'm thinking, someone has done that correctly, not in healthcare. Some other, maybe when I was buying, like, I don't know, bananas or something, right? Someone has done that well. And now I'm judging this other category in a very different way. So let's talk about that for a second, which is a lot of companies measure themselves against their direct competitors, but it's actually a lot more broad than that in digital transformation. I think you're being measured against the very best companies in the world.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, I use the phrase, you know, the modern consumer is coming with a backpack full of expectations, and probably none of them you put in the backpack.
Yeah,
Right?
love
You
that.
know, so the way the consumer is looking for search is influenced by Google. The way the consumer is expecting share is coming from social networks. The way the consumer is expecting up to the minute feedback may be coming from back in the day when they used to, you know, get an Uber, or today when they're ordering a pizza, right? You know, so there's and the amount of information that I can get at my fingertips, right? There's so many things that people are just expecting. So that's what's happening, right? And the other thing that's observation there is that many brands have realized that they can't approach many of these modern channels like they've approached traditional channels, in the sense of many modern channels, if you're, you know, creating one, you're birthing people. In an email address, you know, hey, this is, you know, whatever company email address generally is a lot, you know, is not a person. It often doesn't even have the person's name. It
Great
says,
point.
you know,
Great point.
support at, you know,
Yeah.
fillintheblank.com, right? Like that, it's very unhuman. Versus when I'm on a social network or I'm on a chat, I've started a human conversation. So think about it. If you were in a bar and you met someone, and halfway through the conversation you stopped and started writing on a napkin and passing the napkin to them, they would go, "What the heck just happened?" You know, and
Actually, I would feel
that's what brands do. It's like, we start, "Hello, my name is," and then, and I'm sending you a napkin, or please call me at this number, and walk out the bar. You're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And we don't think of it like it that way, but that's how we're treating consumers.
Wow, we're just having a great conversation here with Paul, and going a little long, so I'm actually going to cut this thing into two. So this ends part one, and we'll come back with part two tomorrow. For the CXM experience, I'm Brad Kahn, CXO at Sprinklr, and I'll see you next time.